Racy says hello. What's going on? You want to be the star. I know you want to be the star. You are the star. Didn't you know that? Yes, you are. Yes, you are. You are my star. Yes, sir. Just like a kid, isn't she? Yes, you are. You're my baby. Hey there, welcome back. I'm Priscilla, the Backyard Homesteader, and today we're going to talk about container gardening. So don't go away. Okay, so yesterday I participated. Oh, can you see the rain coming back there? Let me see if I can scooch this down a little bit. There we go. Once again, I'm trying to beat the sun and the rain. But I wanted to share with you, I'm a container gardener. You can see all my containers out there everywhere. I've got green stock there. I've got a container on every piece of cement or dirt that I can actually fit in, and then some. Because once you start growing, now for me, I'm in the backyard, maybe you're in an apartment, wherever you're growing, you can grow in containers. I'm in containers for a couple of reasons. Number one, I'm renting, and so I don't want to tear up their landscaping, right? And I have gophers. Who loves gophers as much as I do? Oh my goodness, they are such a pest. So for that reason, I use containers. I started out with grow bags. I don't see any here. I've got one back there and then some on the side here. But the problem with grow bags is if you have them in the dirt, the gophers, they chew through grow bags. It happened to me. But you know what? Here's the thing. You try things, they don't always work out, but you learn. You learn a lot of valuable information. And when I go through all of this information for you regarding container gardening, you're gonna learn how to take all the knowledge you get each and every year from your specific environment, your yard, all of that, what's unique to you. You're gonna learn how to gather that knowledge and have the very best garden you can have each and every season. Now, I will admit the fall and winter season is really difficult for gardening, but I always do it because, I just love my garden. And no, I'm not out there every morning watering like I do in the summer, but it still brings me very much joy, and I do get out there and work on it when I can. But I'll be honest, when it's cold, I just can't get out there. I just can't do it. I'm a hot weather gal. It would be perfect if it was like 90 max. But if you've been watching my channel for any time at all, you know that we had triple digits, I want to say, for 60 days last summer. So it was a rough year on the garden. We're going to get started early this year, and we're talking about container gardening today. But on the next video, we're going to talk about getting ready for the spring, which is right around the corner. I've got my gardening journal here. I'm going to utilize this. If you want yours to work along with me, I'll put a link. Get yours. It's not that expensive. I want to say it's $8.99. I don't recall. But that's the next thing up. And there was something else. I can't remember now what it was. But I'm going to give you a little update as well, probably in the middle of the week. The first thing that in this class that they talked about, and by the way, this was a master gardener that was teaching this class, and you know what, everybody has their own unique knowledge to their area, and whenever you try and you have experience, you know best for your area. This is for those of you that perhaps haven't gardened yet, or maybe you're brand new, or maybe you're new to container gardening. I'll say I'm not new, but I'm still learning, and I want to say I feel like we all are constantly learning in the garden. Every gardening season is different too. So with my new gardening journal, I'm able to get things down and written down so I don't forget them for the next year. That's real important if you're wanting to make sure you capture the very most that you can from each season. So containers. The benefits. Okay, so the benefits of container gardening can be many. Maybe you don't have a whole lot of space, and so you need to grow in a container, or perhaps you want to grow something that's invasive like mint or even bamboo. You want to make sure you have that in a container. You don't want that spreading and wreaking havoc either under a fence and over to the next yard or what have you. So container gardening for that is important. Now, you wouldn't put a pine tree in a container, right? Because there's just not enough room for that to grow and be successful. So of course you wouldn't do that. If you're living in an apartment, you just have a patio, you can absolutely grow in containers. I have a friend I met when I went to Roots and Refuge Farm, Mary. Hi, Mary, if you're watching. She grows in her front yard, her side yard, wherever she possibly can, because she doesn't have a whole lot of growing space. She grows in containers and she does a fabulous job. She loves her garden. So don't let the fact that you don't have a yard be a reason to not do it. Just come on, get creative. Let's grow something, start somewhere. Oh my gosh, I remember my first garden. It was a little tiny piece, and now I've got every little inch of this backyard that I possibly can to grow. So it's funny. Once you start growing, I don't know, there's just something about it. It's so magical, and I absolutely love it. Okay, so moving on, let me get you through this. Sun. Your plants are gonna need 6 to 8 hours of sun, depending on what you're growing, in order to photosynthesize, right? And get the energy that they need to grow. So keep an eye on your yard. Keep an eye on how things grow and what spots. I learned where the peppers wanted to grow last year, and so I hope to have a fabulous pepper season this summer. I'm going to start them earlier, and I know exactly where they're going to go because I know where they had a hard time last year. Although I will say, see, I love sunflowers, and so they were nestled under the sunflowers. I was thinking that it would help keep them from, getting too hot and burned from the sun, but it just was too much. Hi, Ritzy Roo. Ritzy says hello. What's going on? You want to be the star. I know you want to be the star. You are the star. Didn't you know that? Yes, you are. Yes, you are. You are my star. Yes, sir. Just like a kid, isn't she? Yes, you are. You're my baby. It's okay, no barking. I think she's coming to chummy up with her mama because she wants to bark. She hears something. Anyway, okay, so yes, 6 to 8 hours, depending on what you're growing, and just keep an eye of that and learn where the best place is to grow things. Okay. Let's see. Now, starting plants from seeds. I will say that I've done many videos on starting seeds because I absolutely love doing it. Now, my very first year, I went to a nursery with my sister, and we got seed starts. There's small plants you could get at the market and what have you. Now, what I will say is something that I did learn, and I know this, and yet I just didn't think about it. When you bring those plants home, just as if you were starting your own seeds, you need to make sure that you don't just immediately put them in the ground, because the environment they came from is not your environment. Right? So you don't want to immediately put them out in the sun. They're going to wilt and they might not make it. So to give your plants the very best ability to thrive, you're going to want to make sure that you bring them home. If you have a patio, leave them on the patio. Hey, not necessary. Thank you. I know. You're sorry. I know. Those doggies are barking. I know the doggies are barking. It's okay. They're not in your yard. They're not in your yard. It's okay. Yeah. Anyway, so you want to make sure you're going to harden their moth just like you would seedlings that you grow yourself, right? So you're going to wait until you know that the ground is warm, and you want to make sure that whenever you're transplanting either plants that you get from the market, from the nursery, what have you, or if they're coming from your own seedlings, you want to make sure you plant them towards the end of the day so that you get them in the ground and they get watered and they get acclimated over the night so that they're not getting that hot sun beating down on them initially, because that causes transplant shock, and we don't want that. Let's give them the best opportunities. So make sure you plant your transplants towards the end of the day, okay? All right, what else do I have here? Also, you're gonna wanna make sure that your soil has warmed up. Now, I will say, one other thing they talked about in regards to containers is the color of your container can be very important as well. Most of my containers are black or terracotta, as you see there. Now, they're gonna dry out faster, but I do mulch all of my containers because it just helps keep the weeds down. It keeps them from growing, and it also helps keep water in during the summer and really kind of stabilize even in the winter time, so that they don't get direct frost onto your soil. That is what you want to avoid. Okay, so color is important. If it's really, really hot, so I'm actually going to have something I'll be revealing, I don't know, early spring, maybe early summer, a solution for all of our pots that maybe are dark and we live in the heat. So stand by for that. You don't want to miss it. All right, let's see what else. Drainage. Okay, so I've gone over this a little bit, but since we're talking about container gardening, I have to mention you want to make sure you drill holes in the bottom of your containers. Yep. I get my husband out here and I say, okay, honey, I've got some new 5-gallon buckets. I need you to, drill some holes in the bottom, and make sure, we usually put some netting down to make sure that we don't lose our soil, but you don't have to. My husband wants me to do that, so I do it because, it makes him feel better. But it's not necessary. It truly isn't. Obviously, you don't want to make the holes too big, but I really don't think you could make them too big unless you made them like that big. So make sure you're putting some drainage holes, because you do not want your plants to get root rot, and you just want the soil to be able to drain. So in containers, you're absolutely going to have to water more often. In the summer, water every morning at like 6 a.m. because that's when it's not like blistering hot. But I enjoy it. For me, it's very therapeutic and I just love it. Plus it's warm, so I love being out in the warmth. I don't like to be out in the cold. I'll be honest. Okay, what else? Oh, and then in regards to containers, you could grow in just about anything. As long as you have the drainage, you can grow in just about anything. You want to make sure you're not growing in anything that maybe had chemicals in it or that isn't of food grade quality. But if you do get containers that you've gotten from somebody else, make sure that you clean them real good. And if you ever have soil that has gotten some sort of disease or some sort of an issue that caused a problem for your plants, just toss them out. I'm not a fan of bleach. People use bleach, but I'm just not a fan of it. If you want to, you can. They suggest a 10% solution, but I don't use bleach. So I just as soon toss it out and start with something fresh, because I just don't want bleach in my soil, period. We want things to grow in this soil. People don't think about that. So whenever you get sterilized soil, all the nutrients are gone. There's nothing there because it's been sterilized. So think about that. And when we're fertilizing the soil. If you use something that isn't organic, you're not feeding your soil. If you use a synthetic fertilizer, you're just feeding the plant, but not the soil. You're killing the soil. So it just doesn't work. It's a vicious cycle. So don't do it. Keep it organic. That's what's going to give your soil all the nutrients that it needs. And yes, in container gardening, you're going to have to fertilize more than if you were growing in the ground. That is the truth. So be prepared for that. And just know that you're going to have to be on a regular schedule and make sure that you fertilize regularly. I know it's tough, but do what you can. Make sure it's sustainable with what you have time for, okay? Don't get crazy and have too many plants like me. I don't feel like I have too many. Okay, the other thing that I found interesting that they mentioned was not to plant in too big of a pot, which I hadn't really ever thought about that. Although I will say that if I'm growing in a large pot, it's because I have something that I know is going to either need that room, or I've planted 3 plants in one pot, right? But they mentioned that if you put a smaller plant in too large of a container by itself, it doesn't get enough water. And so you're feeding a ton of soil that's not being used and maybe not getting to the roots that it needs to get to. So just something to think about, okay? Maybe you start smaller and graduate up, and then eventually in a larger pot if it's needed. That's what they mentioned. Okay, so this is interesting. Carrots. I don't know about you, but I've always had a really tough time with carrots. But I found a place in my yard where they grow well. It's actually in grow bags. And here's what the master gardeners had to say about it. They said that carrots like lighter soil, so they don't want like anything heavy, like anything like clay or anything like that. So if you have a native soil, a third of a native soil, a third compost, and a third perlite. So that would be the perfect solution, soil recipe, if you will, for carrots. They just really like to be in loose soil so they can grow. Think about it. If you think about the carrot and how the carrot grows, if it gets stopped, it starts to deform. So, yeah, let's see. Okay, and then of course, in regards to starting your own seeds and planting, I don't know, Ritzy, come on, enough. Come on, baby. Holy cow. Get your booty over here, little girl. Nobody wants to hear you barking all the time. No. I know you think you're the star, but they don't want to hear you bark. Okay, let's see if we can keep her calmed down. Oh, look at the storm coming. Okay, so what I was talking about is trying to not, hey, you're hitting the stand. Trying to not get your seedlings to get leggy, which means they're too tall, and then they're trying to reach the sun. And so make sure that when you put your grow lights on that they're low enough so that they're not fighting for the sunlight, the energy. I have found that, and I've learned from growing seedlings, that you want to grow things like things. I tend to grow, or I did grow everything, all these seedlings, all in the same pot, right? Not pot, but in the same tray. But the problem with that is some things grow faster than others. And so you may have some things that are doing just fine and other things that are leggy. And so try to keep that in mind when you're growing seeds. Start seeds that are similar in how quickly they grow, okay? Now, if you're growing peppers or tomatoes, you're fine because you can plant those really deep. And as a matter of fact, I think it's Jess who, she likes to grow or plant her tomatoes deep because then they get a better root system, because all those little hairs on the tomato plants, those cause rooting. And so it just makes a stronger tomato plant. So keep that in mind. And the other thing they mentioned was to consider where your plant originated from and make sure that it's a climate that's going to work for where you're at. Now, that doesn't mean that you can't grow something that perhaps shouldn't be grown where you're at. Just know that you're going to have to work a little bit harder on creating the proper conditions for whatever you're wanting to grow. Okay, she did mention that blue basil, that bees really liked blue basil. And so I'm going to have to, I've always had basil and marigolds that I potted in those little terracotta pots. Those right there and right there, those all have basil and marigolds in them every year, and so the bees love them. But I'll have to try blue basil. I hadn't done that before. Ritzy, come on, enough. All right, let's see here. Oh, and then she also mentioned carrots, celery, and cilantro. When they bolt and flower, the bees really like those when that happens. So you might consider letting those go to seed to help attract the bees and feed the bees. Okay, one other thing I had never heard about before, but I've had something similar but not exactly the same. I always have container that doesn't have something in it, waiting for the off chance I need a pot. I don't want to not have some soil ready to let that plant thrive. But she mentioned having what they called a limbo box. You're going to have an opportunity come up where somebody doesn't have something that they don't want or they don't need, they have too much of, or maybe you find a clearance sale at the store. You want to be able to take advantage of that, but maybe you don't have time to really pot it right now. So if you have a limbo box, it's just something, maybe a 5-gallon bucket of soil that you can set them in where the soil's damp. It's not really potted in there, but it's in a nice environment. So just something to think about if you can do that. I already talked about container color, drainage, and mulch. So I think that's it. So I hope that helped you a little bit. Yeah, I mean, the thing that I would tell you most of all is I was using the wrong soil in the very beginning whenever I was planting or using pots. And that is, well, I'll be honest, the first time I planted, I used the dirt from the ground. I didn't know any better. I didn't know about using potting soil. And in grow bags, you're going to need potting soil. You're going to need to incorporate a potting mix along with other things. And so maybe some perlite, maybe something similar to peat moss, maybe some coconut coir, something that helps keep it fluffy, but not too coarse. You know, you want it fine as well. And so you just have to work at finding the right mixture. And yeah, so I was using this potting mix that was like, it was too big. It wasn't good for growing. But you learn this as you go. You absolutely learn this as you go. Anyway, I hope this helped. Let me know down below if this helped you. I'm eager to hear about that. What else can I help you with? Man, I love gardening. I love my backyard. Even if I move onto acreage, I will have what I consider a backyard homestead because, hey, I'm 61 now and this is all me. I'm the only one that's tending to this garden. And so I have to keep it, you know, to where I can manage it. So I'm not going to have rows and rows. It's just not going to happen. It's not the season of my life. So if you're growing like me, stick around because we're going to have a fun summer. And next up, like I mentioned before, pick up my gardening journal and let's plot out our garden. I'm going to take inventory of the pots that I have, the pots that are going to be ready, what's coming up first, what seeds are we going to plant first, the ones that grow quickly, that like the cooler weather, not the high heat. We're going to need to start our tomatoes here pretty soon. We're going to start a lot of seeds, but we're going to be very intentional and plant our seeds and get them ready to go in the ground when they're ready. Like, yeah, not all at the same time. That's what I usually do. I do one big swoop, I plant all my seeds, and then they're not always ready, or we've passed the season. But I'm not going to do that this year. So stick around and we'll get our seeds started and have some fun. Let's get growing. I'll see you next time. Peace. Bye now.